Most old garages did not look organized to a stranger. There were coffee cans on shelves, wrenches hanging from bent nails, a vise bolted to a bench that had seen too many winters, and a toolbox that weighed more than a boy expected when his father finally let him carry it. But to the man who worked there, nothing was random. He knew which screwdriver fit the old door hinges without chewing the screws. He knew which hammer had the right handle. He knew which saw still cut straight because it had been sharpened instead of abused. He knew which old Craftsman wrench came from Sears, which tool had belonged to his father, and which one should never be loaned to a neighbor who did not bring things back. Today, a cheap tool can be bought in 5 minutes and forgotten by next year. But old American garages ran on a different idea. A tool was not just something you owned, it was something you kept in working order. Number 17 on this list explains why old-timers cared so much about the handle, not just the metal. Number 9 is the garage habit that saved fathers from buying the same tool twice. And number 1 may be the real reason old tools seem to last longer than the people who bought them. These are not dangerous shop tricks. They are forgotten tool secrets from Sears, Craftsman, and the old American garage, from the days when tools were expected to earn their place on the wall. This is history, memory, and practical household wisdom. Gas, wiring, vehicles, blades, power tools, structural work, fire, and anything unsafe belong with qualified professionals today. So here are 25 forgotten tool secrets from Sears, Craftsman, and the old American garage. Number 25, the tool had a home. The first secret of the old garage was not steel, it was location. Every tool had a place where it belonged. A hammer on the left side of the bench, a square hanging above the saw, screwdrivers in a coffee can, handles up, wrenches on nails, files wrapped or separated, the hand drill on the shelf where a child could see it but not knock it down. This was not about making the garage pretty. It was about making the garage work. When a tool had a home, its absence meant something. If the good flathead was not in the can, someone had left it in the kitchen drawer. If the square was missing from the wall, it was probably upstairs near the shelf job. If the hammer was gone, a father knew to ask which child had borrowed it before supper. Old garages saved money by not losing what they already owned. A missing tool often becomes a purchased tool. A found tool becomes another year of service from something already paid for. That is why the old wall mattered. It was not decoration. It was memory nailed to studs. Number 24. The good screwdriver was protected. Old fathers could be strangely protective of screwdrivers. There was a reason.
A good screwdriver with a clean tip could save old hardware. A bad screwdriver, or a good one used carelessly, could chew a screw head until a simple job became an ugly fight. In old houses, screw heads mattered. Cabinet hinges, door plates, old latches, drawer pulls, switch covers, and workshop fixtures often used slotted screws that needed the right width and thickness of driver. Too small and the tip twisted. Too big and it scarred the surrounding metal or wood. That is why an old handyman might own several flatheads that looked almost the same to a child. They were not the same. One fit the hinge screws, one fit the cabinet knobs, one fit the old stove panel, which today should be handled with caution and professionals when gas or wiring is involved. One was already too worn for fine work and got used only for rough jobs. The secret was simple: match the screwdriver to the screw. That little habit saved hardware, saved time, and saved the old man from saying things children were not supposed to hear. Number 23. The hammer handle mattered more than shine. A shiny hammer is not always a good hammer. Old garage men knew that by feel. They cared about balance, grip, handle shape, and whether the head was tight. A hammer with the wrong handle could tire the wrist, miss the nail, dent the work, or feel like a stranger in the hand. Many fathers kept one hammer for years because it had become familiar. The handle had darkened where the hand wrapped around it. The wood had smoothed from use. Small dents told old stories. The head was not polished for display, but it struck true. This is why older men sometimes disliked cheap replacement tools, even when they looked new. The new one had no relationship with the hand.
Of course, a cracked handle, loose head, or damaged hammer is not something to romanticize. Unsafe tools should not be used. The good old-timers respected that. But the secret remains: a tool earns trust through feel, not shine. A hammer that feels right helps a man work calmly. Calm work saves boards, fingers, walls, and patience.
Number 22. Files were not tossed in a drawer. A file looks tough. That is why people abuse it. Old handymen knew better. The cutting teeth on a file can be damaged by banging against other metal. If several files were thrown loose into a drawer, they could dull each other before they ever touched a piece of work. So good garages kept files separated, wrapped, hung, or laid where the teeth were protected. A man who had paid for a good file did not want it ruined by laziness. Files also had jobs. A coarse file was not a fine file. A wood rasp was not a metal file. A file used on dirty, gritty material might never cut the same again. This kind of knowledge did not sound exciting, but it saved tools. A file that still bites can clean a burr, shape a small piece, smooth an edge, or rescue a part that otherwise might be thrown away. A ruined file becomes a handle with teeth. The secret was care before storage. The old garage understood that a tool can be damaged while doing nothing if you put it away wrong. Number 21. The folding rule was treated like an instrument. Before tape measures took over every pocket, many fathers trusted a folding wooden rule. It opened section by section with a little click. The numbers wore down where thumbs had rubbed them for years. Some had brass ends. Some had inside measure features. Some lived in carpenter aprons long after newer tools became common. The folding rule had a secret advantage. It made a man slow down. You could not whip it across a room and let it snap back. You unfolded it. You placed it. You looked. You thought. In many small home jobs, that slower rhythm prevented mistakes. Old-timers treated measuring tools with respect because a lying measurement ruins good material. They did not use a rule as a pry bar, paint stirrer, or child's sword if they cared about it. This still matters today. Whether the tool is a tape, square, ruler, or story stick, measuring tools deserve protection from abuse. A saw can cut only where the mark tells it to. And the mark is only as honest as the tool that made it. Number 20. The square had to be true. A carpenter's square, tri-square, or combination square can quietly ruin a project if it is no longer square. Old garage men knew this in their bones. A shelf cut slightly out of square fights the wall. A small cabinet door hangs badly. A frame refuses to sit right. A board looks wrong, and the worker blames himself, the saw, the wood, and the weather before he blames the square. The old secret was to check the square now and then. Not with a complicated machine. Often just by marking a line, flipping the square, and seeing whether the second line matched the first. If the tool lied, the lines told on it. That mattered because an old garage did not always have extra lumber to waste. One false square could turn good material into kindling. This is the kind of habit that separates a tool owner from a tool keeper. Owning a square is easy. Knowing whether it is still telling the truth is the old secret. Number 19. The handsaw was hung, not buried. A handsaw thrown under a pile of boards is a sad thing. Old fathers knew that. A saw blade can bend. Teeth can be damaged. The handle can crack. Moisture can sit against the steel. A good saw that once cut straight can become a frustrating tool simply because it was stored like scrap. So handsaws were hung on the wall, slid into a safe slot, or kept where the teeth were not fighting the world. There was also pride in the handle. Older saw handles were often wood, shaped for the hand, darkened by years of work. A man who had inherited one from his father did not toss it under paint cans. The secret was that a saw remained useful between uses because someone protected it between uses. That idea applies to many tools. The work does not end when the cut ends. It ends when the tool is safe, clean, and ready to be used again. Old garages understood readiness. That is why old tools could wait 20 years and still have something left to give. Number 18. Rust was treated like an early warning. A little rust on a tool was not ignored in a careful garage. It was a message. Maybe the basement was damp. Maybe the tool had been put away wet. Maybe the wall leaked in a storm. Maybe a rag had held moisture against the metal. Maybe the toolbox lived directly on a concrete floor and collected condensation. Old handymen did not only clean the rust. They asked why it arrived. That question saved more tools than any single cleaner. Surface rust on ordinary hand tools could sometimes be cleaned carefully, then the tool dried and protected. But deep damage, unsafe blades, cracked parts, or compromised tools were not something to trust. A tool that can hurt you deserves respect, not nostalgia. The secret was not pretending rust was harmless. The secret was catching it early and fixing the condition that invited it. A rusty tool is often telling you something about the room it lives in. The old garage listened. Number 17. The handle was part of the tool. Modern people often judge a tool by the metal. Old-timers judged it by the whole thing. The handle mattered because the handle carried the work into the body. A rough handle raised blisters. A loose handle stole control. A cracked handle could fail at the worst time. A dry handle could splinter. A handle soaked in grease could slip. So old fathers cared for handles. They sanded roughness. They kept them clean. They noticed cracks early. They replaced what needed replacing. They did not leave wooden handles sitting in mud, rain, or damp corners and then wonder why the tool felt bad. This was not vanity. It was safety and economy. A cared-for handle kept a shovel, hammer, file, rake, plane, chisel, or hand drill in service longer. It also made the work feel personal. The tool belonged to the hand, not just the wall. That is why number 17 matters. The old garage understood that the part you hold is the part that teaches you whether the tool can be trusted. Pause the count for a moment. Look at what these first 9 secrets have in common. None of them are really about buying tools. They are about keeping tools honest after you buy them. A screwdriver tip protected. A hammer trusted by feel. A file kept from dulling itself in a drawer. A folding rule respected. A square checked for truth. A handsaw hung safely. Rust treated as a warning. Handles cared for before they failed. That was the old American garage at its best. It did not worship tools as collectibles. It depended on them as companions. The next group is about the small shop habits that kept a toolbox useful for decades, especially in the Sears and Craftsman era, when a good tool was expected to stay in the family longer than the box it came in. Number 16. The warranty was remembered. For many American families, Sears was not just a store. It was where the household went when it needed something dependable. The Craftsman name became part of that memory because many tools carried a reputation for standing behind the buyer. Fathers remembered which tools could be exchanged, which ones were worth keeping, and which receipts or catalogs mattered. The secret was not abusing a warranty. The secret was buying something with a future. In a time when money mattered, a tool that could be repaired, replaced, or trusted by a known brand felt different from a nameless tool that might fail and disappear. A father could tell his son, "Keep that one. Sears stands behind it." Brand nostalgia can get exaggerated. Not every tool was perfect. Not every era was golden. But the emotional truth is real. People like tools that felt backed by someone. The old garage remembered value not as cheapness, but as service over time. Number 15. The toolbox was not a junk drawer. A toolbox can become useless if it tries to hold everything. Old handymen learned this the hard way. If the box had every loose nail, broken bit, mystery part, dull blade, and dirty rag in it, the good tools disappeared inside the mess. So a good toolbox had order. Not perfect order. Working order. The tools needed most often were reachable. Sharp things were protected. Measuring tools were not crushed. Small parts had tins or envelopes. The bottom of the box was not a graveyard of sawdust, bent nails, and old receipts. This saved money because tools in a chaotic box get damaged. They rust, dull, chip, bend, and vanish. A tool that cannot be found when needed is almost the same as a tool that does not exist. The old toolbox was portable responsibility. When a father carried it into the house, he carried the expectation that the problem could at least be understood. That expectation needed a box he could trust. Number 14. The oil can had boundaries. Every old garage seemed to have an oil can. The little pump kind, the long spout kind, the stained can that lived near the bench and left a ring on whatever shelf held it. Old-timers knew oil could save hinges, tools, and moving parts from wear. They also knew oil could make a mess, attract dirt, swell the wrong material, stain wood, and create problems if used without thought. That was the secret. Oil was useful, but not universal. A few drops in the right place could help an ordinary hand tool or non-dangerous household hinge. Too much oil in the wrong place could turn dust into paste. Oil near electrical parts, gas appliances, brakes, engines, or unknown mechanisms is not casual home work. The good old handyman did not oil everything that squeaked. He asked what was squeaking, why it was squeaking, and whether oil belonged there. Judgment was the real lubricant. Number 13. The stone stayed near the edge tools. Old garages that used edge tools kept sharpening close. A stone near the chisels. A file near the garden tools. A little habit of touching up an edge before it became completely dull. The secret was timing. Sharpening a slightly dull tool is maintenance. Recovering a destroyed edge is punishment. Old-timers tried not to wait until a chisel bounced, a plane tore, or a scraper gouged. This saved money because dull tools waste material. They make rough cuts, scar surfaces, split wood, and tempt the worker to push harder than he should. The stone also taught patience. A man sharpening a tool had to slow down and look at the edge. That pause often improved the repair before it began. Today, many cheap tools are treated as disposable because nobody expects to maintain them. The old garage expected maintenance. It expected the tool to come back to life under the hand. Number 12. The vise was treated like a third hand. A good bench vise was one of the quiet kings of the old garage. It held what a man could not hold safely. A board edge. A small metal piece. A handle being repaired. A bracket being cleaned. A tool waiting for careful work. The secret was not just owning the vise. It was using it with respect. Old handymen knew when to protect a delicate part with wood blocks or scraps before tightening the jaws. They knew not to crush a piece just because the vise could. They knew a solid hold made work calmer, cleaner, and safer. The vise made money go further because it prevented sloppy damage. A part held well could be cleaned, filed, glued, adjusted, or inspected instead of replaced. It also made the garage feel capable. A bench with a vise said, "Bring the problem here, and we will see what it is made of." Not every problem could be solved there, but many could be understood there. Number 11. The extension cord was not permanent. Old garages used extension cords, but careful fathers knew they were temporary helpers, not permanent wiring. That distinction mattered. An extension cord could run a work light for a short job or bring power to a bench tool when used safely and correctly. But a cord left pinched under a door, coiled under a rug, overloaded, frayed, or treated like a wall circuit was danger hiding in plain sight. This belongs in a tool secret list because old household competence included restraint. The best old-timers did not turn every shortcut into a habit. Today, electrical safety matters even more. Damaged cords, overloaded circuits, garages with old wiring, outdoor work, and power tools are not places to guess. Use proper equipment and qualified help. The old secret is still good. Temporary means temporary. A tool that brings power into a workspace deserves more respect than almost anything else in the garage. Number 10. The work light revealed the truth. A good work light could save a repair. Old garages were often dim. Basements were worse. A father working by poor light could misread a crack, miss a screw, cut the wrong line, or fail to see that a part was damaged. So careful handymen moved light before they moved tools. A clamp light, trouble light, lamp, open garage door, or flashlight held by a patient child could change the job. Suddenly the high spot on a door became visible. The stripped screw head showed itself. The crack in the handle could be seen before the tool failed. The secret was that seeing better often meant fixing better. This still matters. Many mistakes begin with shadows. But work lights also carry risk. Heat, cords, broken sockets, and electricity are not casual details. Safe lights, safe cords, and safe placement matter. Old garages taught a simple truth: do not work blind and call it skill. Number 9. The loan tool rule. Every old neighborhood had a tool borrower. The man who asked for the ladder and brought it back with paint on it. The cousin who borrowed the pipe wrench and forgot. The neighbor who returned a saw dull and acted as if steel sharpened itself. Old fathers learned rules. Some tools could be loaned. Some could not. Some went out only with the owner attached. Some were marked. Some were written down. Some were old family tools and never left the garage. This may sound stingy, but it was really stewardship. A tool that took years to afford and care for could be ruined in one careless afternoon. A missing tool could stop the next repair. A damaged borrowed tool could create resentment that outlived the job. The old loan tool rules saved money and friendships. It said, "I will help you, but I will not let a good tool disappear into bad memory." That is why number 9 matters. Old garages were generous, but not foolish. Stop again and look at the pattern. This middle group is about responsibility. The remembered warranty. The orderly toolbox. The oil can with boundaries. The sharpening stone. The vise used with restraint. The extension cord treated as temporary. The work light moved before the tool. The loan tool rule. These are not the secrets of men who simply owned a lot of equipment. They are the habits of people who understood that tools create obligations. If a tool can hurt you, respect it. If a tool can be damaged, protect it. If a tool belongs to the family, do not treat it like a disposable object. That was the old garage ethic. The tools served the house, but the house also served the tool by keeping it ready. The next secrets move into the objects many boys remembered most: the inherited tools, the old brands, the bench itself, and the quiet lessons that turned a pile of steel into family memory. Number 8. The inherited tool was not cleaned of its story. An inherited tool often carried marks. A father's initials scratched into a plane. A grandfather's hammer with a darker handle near the grip. A wrench with worn corners from years of honest use. A hand drill that still smelled faintly of oil and old wood. Old garages did not always erase those marks. They protected the tool, but they left the story. That mattered because tools were one of the ways practical knowledge moved through families. A boy did not just inherit a hammer. He inherited the way his father held it, where it lived, what jobs it was allowed to do, and the warning not to use it for something foolish. This secret made tools last because emotional value creates practical care. People protect what has a story. A nameless cheap tool can be tossed into a damp corner. A grandfather's square goes back on the wall. That is why inherited tools often survive. They are remembered as more than metal. Number 7. The bench was a tool. A workbench is not just a table. Old handymen knew that. A good bench held weight. It took a vise. It caught sawdust. It gave a place for layout, repair, sanding, sorting, and thinking. It had scars from projects that were long gone. It had burn marks, nail holes, paint rings, and maybe a drawer that never opened smoothly. The secret was that the bench made work possible before any hand tool was picked up. A weak bench made every job harder. A cluttered bench made every job slower. A bench with no clear space turned a simple repair into a balancing act. Old garages saved money because the bench allowed things to be repaired instead of replaced. The chair could be turned upside down. The screen could be patched. The drawer could be inspected. The tool could be sharpened. The lamp could be taken apart carefully if it was safe to do so. A family without a bench often had to work on the floor. A family with a bench had a place where broken things came to be understood. Number 6. The catalog taught the names. The Sears catalog was more than a shopping book. For many families, it was a tool education. A boy could look at pages of wrenches, braces, saws, planes, bits, files, vices, toolboxes, and hardware and learn that every tool had a name. Not just that thing. A ratchet. A tri-square. A coping saw. A brace. A countersink. A nail set. A cold chisel. Names mattered because names made knowledge easier to pass. If a father said, "Bring me the nail set," the child learned a tool and a task at the same time. If everything was just the thing over there, the lesson ended before it began. Old garages were full of named objects. That made them less mysterious. This is one reason Sears and Craftsman memories are so strong. The catalog and the store gave ordinary families a shared language for tools. A tool with a name is easier to find, easier to respect, and easier to remember. Number 5. The cheap tool had a dirty job. Old handymen sometimes owned cheap tools too. But they knew what those tools were for. A worn screwdriver might open paint cans, scrape gunk, or handle rough work where the good screwdriver did not belong. A beat-up chisel might clean old putty, but never touch fine wood. An ugly pair of pliers might live in the garden shed. The secret was assignment. The cheap tool did the dirty job so the good tool could stay good. This is a clever kind of thrift. Instead of pretending every tool was equal, the old garage created ranks. Fine work tools. Rough work tools. Loaner tools. Garden tools. Tools for paint. Tools for wood. Tools that used to be good and had earned retirement into rough service. That system saved money because it protected quality. It also prevented the common household crime of using the best screwdriver as a pry bar and then wondering why it no longer fits a screw. Old garages were not sentimental about every tool. They were practical about purpose. Number 4. The cleaning rag came before the toolbox. A tool put away dirty ages faster. Old handymen often wiped tools before they went back. Not because every garage was spotless, but because dirt holds moisture, grit scratches surfaces, and paint, glue, or soil can turn a good tool into a stiff, ugly version of itself. The rag near the bench was part of tool care. Wipe the saw plate. Wipe the wrench. Wipe the handle. Brush off shavings. Dry what got wet. Do not put a tool away wearing the job. This habit cost almost nothing. It saved tools year after year. There is a rhythm to it. Work, inspect, wipe, return. The job ends with the tool ready, not abandoned. Today, many people treat cleanup as a separate chore. Old handymen treated it as the last step of repair. That is why their tools aged with dignity. They were used hard, but they were not left dirty without a second thought. Before the top 3, remember what this list has really been about. It has not been about pretending old tools were magic. Some old tools were excellent. Some were ordinary. Some were worn out. Some modern tools are better, safer, and more precise. The real difference was the relationship. The old American garage taught that tools had to be known, placed, protected, named, cleaned, sharpened, and respected. A tool was not expected to save the day by itself. It worked because the person using it had a habit to go with it. That is what many people miss when they inherit an old toolbox. They see steel. The real inheritance is behavior. How to put it back. How to choose the right one. How to stop before forcing. How to clean it. How to know when not to touch the job at all. The last 3 secrets are the ones that turned old tools into old wisdom. Number 3. The child was allowed to watch. Old tool knowledge survived because children were allowed near the bench. Not near danger. Not near spinning blades, live wires, engines, gas, fire, or unsafe jobs. But near ordinary work. Sorting screws. Holding a flashlight. Handing over a rag. Learning the names of tools. Watching a father test a square, sharpen a chisel, wipe a wrench, or put a saw back on the wall. The secret was exposure. A child who sees tools cared for learns that tools are not toys and not trash. A child who hears, "That screwdriver is for screws, not prying," learns more than a rule. He learns respect for purpose. Old garages passed knowledge in small scenes. A boy standing in silence. A daughter labeling jars. A grandson told to bring the folding rule, not the tape. The old American garage was a classroom without desks. And the lessons lasted because they were attached to smell, sound, touch, and memory. Number 2. The tool was blamed last. When a job went wrong, old-timers did not always blame the tool first. They asked questions. Was the tool sharp? Was it the right tool? Was the mark wrong? Was the wood damp? Was the screw too large? Was the worker rushing? Was the tool being asked to do a job it was never made to do? This is one of the deepest old garage secrets. The tool was part of a system. A good saw can cut badly in impatient hands. A good square can be ignored. A good screwdriver can ruin a screw if it is the wrong size. A good wrench can round a nut if the user does not seat it fully. Blaming the tool too early leads to buying another tool. Understanding the mistake leads to becoming better. That is how old garages saved money and built competence at the same time. They did not treat every frustration as a shopping list. They treated it as a lesson. Number 1. The tool earned its place. The greatest forgotten secret from Sears, Craftsman, and the old American garage was not a specific wrench, saw, hammer, drill, file, or square. It was the idea that a tool had to earn its place. It earned that place by working, by lasting, by being cared for, by coming back to the same nail on the wall after every job, by fitting the hand, by helping repair the house, the porch, the chair, the shelf, the screen, the cabinet, the little broken thing on the kitchen table. Old garages did not always have more tools than modern garages. They often had fewer. But the tools they had were known. A father knew the good hammer. He knew the screwdriver that fit the pantry hinge. He knew the saw that needed sharpening. He knew the wrench that had belonged to his father. He knew which tool could be loaned, which tool stayed home, and which tool had one more good decade if treated right. That knowledge made tools last because neglect begins when everything feels replaceable. Think back to that old garage. The Sears catalog on a shelf. The Craftsman wrench in a drawer. The coffee can full of screws. The hammer handle dark from use. The file wrapped so its teeth stayed sharp. The square hanging where everyone knew it belonged. The child watching from the doorway, waiting to be trusted with one small job. No one called it heritage. It was just Saturday. But that is how heritage often hides. In a tool put back where it belongs. In a handle wiped clean. In a father saying, "Use the right screwdriver." In a grandfather refusing to throw away a saw that only needed sharpening. The old American garage was not really about tools. It was about responsibility made visible. Every object on the wall said the same thing: if you take care of useful things take care of you. That is the secret we lost when cheap replacements became easier than patient ownership. If this reminded you of a father, grandfather, neighbor, Sears toolbox, Craftsman wrench, old garage wall, or tool you still keep because someone you loved used it first, tell us what it was and where it lived. Because sometimes the most valuable tool in a house is not the newest one. It is the one that taught somebody how to care.